Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really powerful section of the Quran, Surah An-Naml, and we're going to use a detailed commentary to unlock what's going on beneath this surface. We'll be exploring the incredible kingdom of Prophet Solomon, but we're going way beyond just the epic stories of grandeur. What we're really going to get into is the complex relationship between having absolute power, being given divine gifts, and facing the profound challenge of gratitude. Trust me, this isn't just a history lesson, it's a masterclass on what it means to have privilege and responsibility. Let's get into it.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the very foundation of Solomon's kingdom, to understand where his power even came from. Then, we'll get into the nature of his divine gifts, and try to decode one of his most incredible claims. From there, we'll see how all of this absolute power was actually a massive test. And finally, we'll look at his ultimate response, a powerful prayer of gratitude that just ties everything together perfectly.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The commentary we're looking at really zeroes in on the first verse of this whole story, because it lays the entire groundwork for the rule of both David and his son Solomon. Seriously, everything that comes next flows directly from this one single statement.
The commentary immediately tells us to pay attention to two really important words here. First, David and Solomon were given ilm, or knowledge, and the key word there is given. It wasn't something they achieved on their own. Second, they immediately recognize this gift as a fadl, which means a favor or grace from God that made them special. You see, this isn't just a polite intro. It's the core belief that defines their entire reign.
What's so fascinating here is the order of events. Before there's any mention of armies or palaces or power, their very first action is praise. They don't take credit, they don't issue commands, they say thank you. This right here becomes the cornerstone of their kingdom. And the commentary points out how specific they are. They say, favored us over many of his believing servants. Now that might sound a little arrogant, but it's actually the opposite. It's a precise acknowledgement of their unique rank and the huge responsibility that comes with it.
This brings us to a central point the commentator makes about how these divine gifts actually work. I mean, if this incredible knowledge and favor are just bestowed, what's the deal? Can you earn them like a promotion, or is something else going on?
The source text makes a really crucial argument here. It says that roles like prophecy and divine wisdom aren't a reward for good deeds you've already done. You can't just, rack up enough points to qualify. Instead, the commentary calls it a matter of istifa, which basically means divine selection. It's a choice God makes based on his eternal, pre-existing knowledge of who a person is and what they're capable of.
And this leads to a fascinating theological concept the commentator brings up, the gift of the pure. The idea is that God, who knows everything, knows the inherent goodness and potential of a soul before they've even done anything. So the gift comes before the proof. It's given to them because God knows they have the capacity and the character to handle its weight.
And here's where the commentator ties it all together with a fundamental principle from the Quran. With a greater gift, you get a greater capacity, a greater wus'ah. God literally expands your ability to handle the huge task he's giving you. But, and this is so important, with that bigger capacity comes a greater taklif, a greater responsibility, and much higher stakes. The two are completely connected.
So the bottom line is this. The roles of David and Solomon are a kind of divine appointment. They were chosen, not self-made. And understanding this is absolutely key, because it reframes their power. It wasn't something they earned and owned. It was a trust they were selected to manage. Okay, now we get to one of the most incredible statements in this whole narrative. Solomon takes over from his father, David, and he makes a public announcement to his people, an announcement that includes a claim that is almost impossible to believe.
Let's just break this down for a second. The first part is mind-blowing enough. We have been taught the speech of birds. The word here is mantiq, which means logic or speech, so we're talking about a deep understanding, not just mimicking sounds. But it's the second part that's the real puzzle, and we have been given of all things. The commentator spends a lot of time helping us figure out what on earth this means.
This obviously raises a huge question. Was Solomon literally claiming to possess every star in the sky, every mountain, every single grain of sand? Was this a claim of total ownership over all creation? Well, according to the commentary, the answer is a very clear and definite no. The meaning is way more specific and practical.
What the analysis explains is that the phrase "given of all things" really means he was equipped with the complete toolkit he needed for his unique, divinely ordered mission. He was given all the necessary means,
the knowledge, the resources, the authority, and unique abilities like understanding animals to establish a just and global kingdom. It's not about owning everything, but about mastering everything necessary for the job.
And this just brilliantly illustrates a point the commentary makes about what prophets inherit. The real inheritance passed from David to Solomon wasn't gold or land. It was nubuwah, the mantle of prophecy, and mulk, the kingdom itself. It was an inheritance of spiritual and governmental responsibility. It was an inheritance of duty.
Now, this divine toolkit for ruling the world is shown most dramatically in the makeup of Solomon's army. I mean, this was an army unlike anything that had ever existed or has ever existed since. It was a physical manifestation of the unique power he was given.
Right here, we see the true scale of his kingdom. His soldiers weren't just people. They were made up of three totally different categories of being: the jinn, from an unseen world, men from our world, and birds from the animal kingdom, all of them gathered under one single command. Just think about that.
Now, the commentator really zooms in on one specific word at the end of that verse, use our own. The analysis explains that this word means so much more than just gathered. It means they were held in check, perfectly organized and arranged with absolute discipline. Can you imagine the logistics of managing a force from different dimensions? This one word tells us that Solomon's control was total, and the order was flawless. This wasn't some chaotic horde. It was a disciplined, multi-species army.
And this brings us to the central takeaway here. This unbelievable army wasn't a prize. It was the ultimate test. Because when you command forces from the seen and the unseen worlds, your biggest danger isn't some enemy out there. It's the risk to your own soul. The real trial for Solomon was whether he could stay humble and grateful while holding that kind of overwhelming power.
So how did Solomon do on this ultimate test of power? Well, the climax of the story gives us the answer, and it shifts from this huge external display of his kingdom to a quiet moment of deep personal reflection. It reveals his inner state and shows us the perfect response to his trial. He makes this prayer right after he, at the head of this mighty army, overhears a tiny little ant warning its colony to get out of the way. And in that moment of humility, recognizing the wisdom and organization in even the smallest of God's creatures, he turns to God. His reaction to this tiny event tells us everything we need to know about his character. Now, the commentator's analysis of the prayer's wording is just beautiful. First, Solomon says awazini, which is often translated as enable me. He's not just saying thanks, he's actually asking God to give him the capacity to feel and express gratitude. He recognizes that true thankfulness is a gift that only God can give. And second, he asks to do righteous deeds that God approves of. Darlahu. The commentary points out that this is a much higher goal. It's not enough to just do what you think is good. The real aim is to align your actions perfectly with what God wants, to seek his specific approval.
As we see here, this one prayer is basically a complete roadmap for a spiritual life. It connects the past, the present, and the future all in one go. He starts by looking back, acknowledging the blessings on himself and his parents. Then he deals with the present, asking for the ability to do good right now. And finally, he looks to the future with the ultimate goal, to be welcomed into the company of the righteous. It's a total holistic view of a life lived for God.
And as the source commentary details for us, this prayer is the definitive answer to the test of power. Faced with a kingdom beyond anyone's wildest dreams, his deepest wish isn't for more power, but for the ability to be grateful and to please the one who gave him those gifts. This, the commentary tells us, is the perfect balance between holding immense power and having profound humility. And so we're left with this really powerful question that comes out of this analysis. If Prophet Solomon, a man who commanded beings from the seen and the unseen worlds, saw his most important task as simply asking for the ability to be thankful, what does that say about us? It really forces us to look at our own gifts, our own power, no matter how big or small, and to face that fundamental challenge of being truly, sincerely grateful.